Good morning everybody and welcome to our session this morning. Welcome everybody here in person, everyone who's watching from home. So, very exciting panel that we have with us for our next topic. So our topic is looking through the lens of volunteer. Why should they be doing it and what's in it for them? So I'm really excited to be talking more about your organisations and what you're going to be doing. But before we get started, we'll just do a bit of a quick fire round of questions just to get you in the mood and just to familiarise yourselves with people at home. So, Amy, we'll start with you. What's your favourite book? Or one of your top 5?
Oh, I'm really into crime stories. So Martina Cole's one of my favourite authors out of the UK, addicted to her books. She'd be up there.
Good choice.
Ooh, for me it will be The Lord of the Rings.
Oh.
Yes. Easy one for me.
Yeah, that's a good one.
New Zealand novel for me, Season of the Jew, historical fiction, Morris Shadbolt, set back in the New Zealand Wars and part of a trilogy, just great series, my favourite ever.
I should remember that one then, put that down on my list. Okay, favourite food?
Oh, also a hard one. Probably sushi.
Oh yes, nice. Would you say you were a cat or a dog lover, or both?
Definitely a cat. Yes.
Cat.
Yeah, we tried a dog for 3 months and that was it.
Oh,
That was it.
that was it. So definitely cats for
Yes.
you. And what was the first concert or gig that you ever attended?
Oh goodness. Tina Turner,
Wow.
yes, in
How
Auckland.
could you have a top Tina
I
Turner?
know,
That's
yeah.
it. That's it.
That's
first
it,
and
yeah,
only.
Yeah.
Brilliant. And really quickly, what's your most used emoji when you're texting?
Smiley face.
Yeah, I'd probably go with that, Amy. Don't use them that often.
Come on, Bruce, give us something else.
Bitmoji for me that's sort of on, I've made one up that looks a little like me. So.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
oh
so
yeah. I
and
like
then
that.
you can
I
get
like
that in different guises, in different emotions and all sorts
Your
of
avatar.
Yeah, it's
Yes,
my avatar.
I do like it. Brilliant. All right, so let's get stuck into our topic. Actually, we'll do introduction, shall we? So if you can introduce yourself, your organisation, and around the mission and purpose of your organisation, would be awesome. Amy, do you want to start?
Sure. So I'm with Bellyful and obviously in the Tauranga branch, but we're a nationwide organisation that was created in 2009 by our founder Jackie, who found herself living in rural Pukekohe with 2 young children and no support network, and found she was getting some meals delivered by some of the ladies in the church that she belonged to, and thought what a great concept, what a great idea. So she's created this network of organisations around New Zealand that want to nurture community first and foremost, but then really support families that are either lacking in a support network or just going through some general struggles. And so we take hot meals that can be reheated very quickly in an oven or a microwave to families that need some support.
Wonderful.
Sweet. My name is Theo Ursum. I'm the club president of the Blue Rovers Football Club here in Brereton. We service about this whole peninsula, up to Paispa and the lakes. About 500 players we got during the winter, aged 4 to a couple of seniors as well, so basically any age that we have. Our vision and what we're trying to achieve is connecting the communities through football. Really making connections, players, families that are coming to the game, and making a bit of a network out of that. That's our main goal. Any other questions that you have?
No, that was good.
Yeah, that was good.
Brilliant.
Cheers.
Thank
There you go.
Bruce Fraser is my name. I'm the chair of the Otanewainuku Kiwi Trust. The Otanewainuku forest is up the back of Oropi, back behind Tauranga here. Fantastic place with 3 great walks up there that lots of families are using nowadays. So our mission is to protect the indigenous biodiversity of that area. So the signature species that we have are Kiwi and kōkako, but lots of trees. It's a DOC conservation estate, and we manage 1,200 hectares with an integrated pest management strategy. So just trying to keep out or keep the numbers down of rats, stoats, possums, anything that will destroy. And for example, if the survival rate for kiwi is very, very low unless we lift the eggs and take them to the national hatchery. But if you left them in the wild, at best you would get 5% survival rate. So we're really up against it, and that's our big challenge.
Thank you for sharing, everybody. So obviously looking at our topic and looking through a lens of a volunteer, I thought we'd start with a little bit of a scenario. So I just want you to picture you're off to a meeting in the city, New York, choose wherever you like, and you're just about to go into a lift. There's another person who's right next to you, and you both go in there together. You're going to level 16, and as you're heading towards that level, the lift stops. Okay, we're not going into worst case scenario here, but what we're going to talk about is this person. You get talking to this person in the lift, of course you do. You're both trying to take your mind away from the fact that you're probably freaking out a little bit, anxiety's going up a little bit, and how quickly are they actually going to open these doors and get us out? And this person starts talking to you, and they hear about what you're doing, and they're like, I've been thinking about volunteering for such a long time, but I don't know how, I don't know how to do it, can you tell me more about it? What would be your elevator type pitch for someone to join your organisation as a volunteer to support the amazing things that you were doing? Who would like to start on that one?
Yeah, I'm happy to give it a go to start with, because it's a great question to ask. And so what I would be saying to my fellow lift traveller would be that there are lots of good reasons to volunteer. There's an intrinsic reason that it makes you feel good about yourself in giving back to your community. But there are lots of, I think, other values too, that you're going to get to meet with people that have like-minded sort of attitudes and perspectives on life. And for us, you're going to be out in a beautiful piece of bush. And that what I would be encouraging the fellow lift traveller to do would be to turn up to our next work day. So every month on the second Sunday we have a work day, and we welcome new people along to those work days. We team them up with some experienced people and put them out in the bush with some generally simple tasks such as clearing tracks or fixing up bait stations. So just sort of making it easy for them, so being really encouraging and positive to them, and then giving them an easy way of taking the next step, so that it becomes more than just a discussion in the lift and then gets forgotten.
Love that.
Excellent. It's brilliant sales pitch.
Yeah, I'm thinking I wouldn't mind being in the forest and doing some clearance myself after that.
But Bruce, it's a point there, because it's people are really busy, so you really need to find out, and what I will do is really find out what that person really wants to contribute. Does he want to go out in the forest, or is preferably want to help out maybe behind the scenes? So it's really suss out where they can contribute, trying to find out where their skills are. If I look at it from the Blue Rovers point of view, just trying to find out what can they add to the club, and make that hurdle, indeed Bruce, what you're talking about, make that hurdle of stepping into a volunteer role as low as you can, is really important. So I totally agree with that one. Yes.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, and I agree with Bruce. There is something really quite rewarding and powerful about knowing that you're doing something, even if it's the smallest, seems insignificant something, but you're doing it, and you do get a very good sense of self-worth from doing something like that. But there is far more reasons to do it. You know, I've been involved with Bellyful now for 4 years, probably getting close to that 5-year mark. I've made some great friends. I've also made some great business networks. So, like, it's been really awesome for me personally, as well as being able to contribute to the community. We have, for us, a really wide-ranging, diverse group, mostly women. I'm not going to lie. We have a couple of males that come into the kitchen and cook with us, every so often, but mostly women, and their age range is great. We've got one lady who is almost 90, that her sole job that she does for us is put labels on containers. That's one job, but it's one job that another volunteer doesn't have to do, or doesn't have to be done in the kitchen when there's a lot of other work to do. So there is something for everyone, and it's like Theo said, it's about finding the balance, finding the skill set. How do we use every volunteer that wants to put their hand up and say, yes, I want to help, find a way to make them able to help.
I agree with Amy there, where we've got a lot of roles that we want to still fill at the Blue Rovers, and behind the scenes, and also helping out with coaching, and supporting coaches. And it's finding out sometimes that we can't fill a role with one person, it's going to be 2 or 3.
Yes.
And to be able to have that flexibility to say, okay, well, I like the example where you mentioned just labels. We have people just do one thing, but it's awesome, it's amazing, they love doing it, and we need to create, as a club, need to create that environment for them to be able to step into that. So be really flexible with your roles.
Amy, I wonder if I could ask you a question, because sometimes my experience, and I've worked with volunteer groups for a long time, is that people join. In your case, they might join to help out cooking, and in our case, they might join because they want to be out in the bush. But then we see, oh, you've got these skills, and we could get you to be our secretary or our treasurer. And so suddenly these people find themselves not doing what they originally joined up for. Is that something that you have?
Most definitely. And so if we see that happening and see that they're starting to disconnect, then we look to take them back to what their core reason was for volunteering in the first place. And we find someone else that can then step up and do that. But I think the really important bit is to keep reinforcing that message that it doesn't matter what part of the puzzle you take, it all contributes and it all helps. You know, one of the jobs that we have the most difficult with is picking up mince. It's so simple, but you know, we've got great support from the Cherrywood butchery. So Cherrywood for a lot of people is quite a distance to travel to in Tauranga. So, and the distance from picking it up in Cherrywood and delivering it to Bay Park at the other side of town, that's, you know, for most people a challenge, and yet it's actually not that hard, but it's just finding the right click.
Yes. I think it's the other way around as well, Bruce, where that you might have people that go out in the bush, and they're physically maybe not able or getting up to that stage, and being able then to offer another role in your organisation because they probably don't want to leave. And just having the pathway to say, hey, well, what about secretary? Because you can still contribute to your club. I mean, we've got the same issue with Blue Rovers. There's a lot of people doing many roles. One, they like to do it, but me as president, I'm always about, okay, well, they need to be, they want to do the job, that's okay. Nobody needs to be forced to really step into a role because nobody else does. That's something that the club needs to take on, not that person. So I'm really eager to say, no, you can step down, you're okay, you've done your shift, you can move on, that's fine. It's up to us now to come up with a replacement.
We've found great support from Volunteering Bay of Plenty in this, like they are paid by Western Bay of Plenty District Council to provide organisational support for us in recruiting and managing our volunteers, which is how I got involved initially, and it's how others come on board, and it's been a fantastic support service for us. But yes, I agree with you about it's horses for courses, isn't it? And keeping people engaged is a real challenge, because we find sometimes that people will come out and they'll do a work day, and then we sometimes don't see them again. So we've got good numbers, but retaining people is sometimes a challenge for us.
So, can you share some of your stories? Obviously, Emmy, you were sharing about one of your volunteers who's 90 and obviously her role is to put the labels on, and obviously she loves what she does, and that you all talked about the giving and how it feels good, and we all know when people even watch someone else giving, they feel good about seeing it happening, and then they give. It's just a beautiful knock-on effect. So can you share some of the stories of what your volunteers have shared with you about what they have got out from volunteering? And it might be something that they were expecting or something that they weren't expecting. But if you can share one of your stories, that would be amazing.
Yeah, I've got one. I've got one of my youth players who was keen to help out a bit more in the organisation, and that person supported another team, just informally first, then she became an assistant coach, and now she's training up to be a coach. And that was a person that was really quiet, didn't have that much self-confidence in the sense of speaking to other people, and she gained the trust and felt like, yeah, I can do that. And now she's assistant coach of another team, and really setting the exercises and really guiding the team. So it's really amazing.
That's wonderful, because that is a real progression, isn't it? Especially if you're more perhaps introvert or just on the shyer side, because you've really got to step out of your comfort zone when you're a coach.
Yes.
You've got to command everyone's attention, make sure everyone stays safe as well as training them. And then she's obviously progressed her way through, and their life skills as well that she's getting. That's amazing.
It's interesting to hear you say that, Theo, because I grew up in Napier and played a lot of hockey. It's a wrong sport for you, I'm sorry. But I think about all those adults who put time into coaching me and refereeing games and organising all the games, and that to me has always been a motivation to think back of that, and it motivates me to want to give back, because those people have provided so much in my life. And in terms of our volunteers, I mean, like I heard Alan Mundy in your last session talking about how humble the volunteers are and trying to get recognition for them. They just go, oh no, just let me do my work. But we've got Ross and Nicola, a couple who volunteer for us, and they just do so much work, and they're so enthusiastic and passionate about what they do that just being with them is inspirational and encourages lots of other people to carry on too. And there are so many of those people. We've got volunteers, like our Kiwi team, who will be out in the bush all night listening for and monitoring Kiwi. And that's purely voluntary. There's no monetary reward for any of that at all.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And have you got any stories from those individuals of what they love about what they do? Obviously they love giving back, but obviously they've got a passion about nature and conservation. But that's huge to be in the bush all night, and it's freezing cold.
Well, they've got a belief about how that we need to conserve those species and that bush. So there's so deep down, or intellectually, there's that belief in that. But they also they're just having been with some of them out there, they're just totally comfortable in the bush, and they're kind of that one with that space, and they do, I suppose for them, they get value from being in a place that they really love being in. But in addition to that, and it goes back to the previous discussion, they're also, some of them are also involved, like they're on the trust, or they'll be involved in different programs, or advocating, or building relationships with stakeholders, and so doing a whole lot of other things as well as that pure bush work.
And what about training within, obviously, all your organisations? What kind of training do volunteers get to set them up for success in what they're going to be doing?
Well, for us, obviously, a kitchen is a fairly can be quite a dangerous place. So there is a standard health and safety training that's run through right through the country, and it covers not only the kitchen environment, but potentially some of the riskier environments, particularly those doing deliveries might find themselves put into. And so there is some scenario sessions around, what to do if you turn up to a house and you're terrified of dogs and there's dogs on the property, or even, I don't like to make things sound tragic, but when you're in a situation where you're doing a delivery a situation where you feel that there's some safety concerns for the young child or someone within the household that you're turning up to, and it's having those ongoing discussions continuously, learning from each other branch, I guess, and the scenarios that some of their volunteers have faced, and make sure that we're all sort of in line with the way that we handle things, because you know there is an element of risk there when you're turning up to an unknown property, and there's history of that in the past of things that have been uncomfortable for volunteers to deal with. So there's a regular communication around that sort of thing, and ongoing sort of discussion around best practice, and the branches are very good at talking to each other, and kind of we all learn together, and then we share that knowledge with the other volunteers, and
that's brilliant.
I think for our club it's really important, if you look at our winter season, is supporting our coaches. You mentioned hockey. We've got a couple of people that came from hockey and now coaching in football, so they haven't got that background, so to make sure that they offer training just to get used to the way football plays, and it's also supporting them on the field. So we've got a director of football who walks around during training sessions, so if you've got a question or you see something that's happening, you can step in and say, oh yeah, you can do an exercise like this, and you can help out. We realise that if we empower our coaches to do that and be able to be comfortable standing there and coaching the team, it will reflect on the players. So it's about how do we enable, although the coaches are really busy, can we give them snippets about this is how you do that, this is how you prepare for your training, make sure they always got a ball at their feet. You're training 8th grade, so there's 8-year-olds, don't worry about structure that much, make sure they got a lot of touches on the ball. So making them feel comfortable, what they're doing is actually perfect for that age group. Next to that, it depends on the role, so I'm really keen on doing governance training for our committee. I'm saying that a lot of people are interested in helping out but might not have that experience. Yes, we need to train them up. I'll make sure that they'll do some good inductions with that person to really set them up for success.
I'm interested to hear you say that, and I'd like to follow up on that, on your last point there later, Theo, if we could. But so for us, as I mentioned, we would a new person coming out to a work day, we would team them up with someone who was experienced, so they'd be on the job. So, and like we always start with a health and safety briefing, because you're going out into a potentially not dangerous, but there are some risks out there in the bush, and some of it can be a bit steep, and there are waterways within the bush as well. So just making people aware of that. But then on the job training, and yes, I'm interested to hear you say about the governance training. But a lot of it we try and recruit the skills already, but we can't assume that ongoing that people have got all that, and so we're just currently looking to provide first aid training for some of our team leaders, to make sure that we've got a number of people that are out there on a work day who can administer first aid effectively, because in addition to the work days, the more experienced people also have their own trap lines, and they go out and do the work on those trap lines at times that it suits them. So we're just trying to make sure we've wrapped good health and safety practices around them being out in the bush at times, and that other, a bit like Coast Guard or something, that you're making sure that the other people know that they're there and that when they're due back.
Yeah, that's really, really important, isn't it?
Yeah.
Especially being out in the bush. So for volunteers, someone who's never volunteered before, obviously looking to give their time and be part of an organisation and be part of another family and make some friends from it. When it comes to, I suppose, them being in the right clothing, right? Because I'm watching and listening to everything you're saying, and what a real diverse panel. And obviously you're talking about being in the kitchen. Well, we're quite straightforward with an apron or something like that, and hairnet and wash your hands and things. But then we've got, obviously, with the football, I guess the expectation is that you have your own gear with you football boots, and you probably get a T-shirt or something that so you've got the branding, people know who you are. Chip in at any point if I'm missing
Yes.
things here. Bruce, with yours, I would think it was more complex again with the type of apparel people would need to be fit.
Yeah, it's pretty much like we would say to people, if you're coming along to a work day, you know, at this time of the year, it's going to be chilly out there probably, so bring warm clothing and good solid shoes, bring some water and some snacks, and we do provide a barbecue at the end,
Love it.
but during it, so you could be out there for several hours, to make sure that you know you've got good warm clothing. It doesn't need to be high vis or anything special like that for us, because there shouldn't be hunters out there in a docker state like that. So yeah, there's nothing special about it, but we do try and make sure that people are aware of what the requirements are for how they dress.
Yeah. And what about, do you offer any assistance, or do any of your fellow volunteers, you know, let's just say someone would love to be in the outdoors but they don't have the gear for that? Do you have any kind of assistance where people have things that they share with each other for jackets, or kind of no, you've got nothing like that?
No.
I'm just thinking
because it's going to be like all of us, I imagine, is get funding is a key challenge that we have. So we've got to fund our PEST program and a number of other financial costs that we've got. So we're always trying to make sure that we've got a sustainable funding stream going forward. So it doesn't run to providing clothing or anything for people.
No, and I didn't think you would pay for it. I thought maybe within your network and team, people might have things
that could happen. I haven't seen that happen, but I guess that could.
So I know what happens within sport. People will very often give their shirts because they're growing out with them. So it's a little bit different because you've got kids growing all the time.
And I think if you look at our coaches in supporting the team, it's about making sure as a club that we've got all the resources available for them to just turn up, and they can go into our sheds and there's gear, there's balls available, proper balls, so they don't have to pump them out. To make it really easy for them to just turn up, grab their gear, and set up their exercise for their team. And that's where we put a lot of effort. And again, if we can make that hurdle for them to step in, it's easy for them to step in as a coach or any other role. It will be a lot easier, and it will be a lot more enjoyable for a person just to turn up. It's like, we know everything is there. Just turn up and we can start training.
Yeah, it's awesome. And so we get into a little bit more of the nitty-gritty for activities, so people really understand. So we've talked about some activities, but Amy, if you can take us through the roles that you have in a little bit more detail in some of those activities, so people really get a good understanding of, okay, if I was going to be volunteering at Bellyful, what options are there and where could I fit into your organisation? What would that look like?
Absolutely. So we've got, we cover a wide variety of roles, the obvious ones being the cooking and the delivering of meals. But outside of that, we also, we have a branch coordinator role that manages the entire branch. We are currently recruiting a volunteer coordinator who's actually meeting with new volunteers, taking them through the process of onboarding, particularly with us. There's a time delay with getting them on board with the police clearance checks that we have to go through, because we are going to families with young children. So that's a big role. It's not a difficult role, and it's actually quite a fun role because you're getting to meet lots of people all the time, and you're talking about something that that you're passionate about and you're really connected with. So it's a fun role, but it's almost never ending, it seems sometimes, because we get a lot of people looking to volunteer with us. So then there's just general admin support, always singing out for people that help keep volunteer and sponsor databases, things like that up to date. Funding role that's doing all the funding applications, the grant applications, and all the accountability that goes alongside that. And then we have a coordinator role that coordinators and marries up the referrals that come to us either from families themselves or their friends or someone like a plunket nurse or a midwife, and coordinating them with a driver to take them to go and collect the meals, drop them off and wrap up that report. Lots of reporting. There's always opportunities for someone to put their hand up to help with fundraising events and just a kind of general community awareness type role. So yeah, the really obvious ones are cooking and delivery, but there's a lot of stuff that actually goes on in the background behind the scenes as well, and it's actually some of that stuff that is the stuff that people aren't really aware of, and when they come to us to looking to volunteer, they're either thinking delivery or cooking, but when we start to tell the story of all the little bits of the puzzles and behind it, we've had it recently an accountant say, well, I could probably help with the funds. Right. So it's there's lots of different things.
I think we've got the same at the Blue Rovers, where if you look at the people that you see out there on the field, that's probably about 100 people, and we got about 50 people that work behind the scenes to make it all tick. So there's indeed your committee secretary, we're looking for a secretary at the moment, and there's always looking at who's got the expertise that will fit into the committee. There's always a need for some of the coordinator roles that we have. It's always good to have an assistant, so we trying to get that succession plan already in place, and that's always difficult for our club to do so, but we're always keen to start training up people already. So we're looking at sponsorship role, people that can help us out with that. We've got quite a few sponsors, but who's going to make those calls, who's going to follow up on that. Simple one is health and safety. A little bit of marketing, we're looking at more of a sponsor, and also our marketing plans. So we're looking for maybe a company that can help us out, or a person that is keen to take that to the next level for us. And I guess you can't have enough coaches on the field. It's always good to split your groups in two, or if you can't make it, it's always good. So there's always something to do at Blue Rovers. Can help out.
And we would be similar, I think, to what Theo and Amy are saying, is that we look at we've got a trust, we've got 7 trustees at the moment, but each of those people has another area. And this is just, I think, the nature of voluntary organisations, is that people wear different hats. So that one of the people on the trust is also the operations manager. So if you turn up to a work day, he would be there all ready to welcome you. He would make sure that there was food for you at the end, that you got the health and safety briefing, that the work program for the day was all sorted. Also on there is the Kiwi person and the financial person, and then so we have those different roles, like turn up and just monthly or whenever it works for you, and go out on a work day, or have your own trap lines, or help behind the scenes, in lots of different ways. And I think that Amy and Theo have spelt out the same sort of things that we have, and keeping the continuity of that going, because you start to see the age group rising, and so getting young people, and one of the challenges that we have at the moment in particular is about engagement with tangata whenua, which is a really important thing for us. So we have 6 different iwi who whakapapa into the mountain Otanewainuku, and they each have an interest and want to have some sort of involvement, but they like us struggle with capacity issues, and so we need to, I think, up our game and undertake more engagement with iwi. So having someone that can run the cutter over that stuff is really important for us.
Really important role going forward. Yeah, absolutely. And with all the organisations and all the amazing things that you do, where you talk about challenges there, what other challenges are you finding with your organisations, with obviously trying to find individuals to maybe have certain skills or experience, or do you find actually everybody who comes to us, it's open door, there'll always be something that we can help?
For
bits
us,
more?
it's we get a lot of really great volunteers and have a really good, strong network of volunteers. It's probably the challenge for us is getting those key leadership roles filled more so than anything else. And I think the natural assumption that people make is that it's time consuming, and it actually doesn't need to be. It can be as time consuming as you want it to be. One of our greatest philosophies is that it's got to fit in with your lifestyle, because if it doesn't, you're going to be here for 2 minutes. And so, yeah, it's about planning for that succession. We've recently had gone through some slight leadership changes, and it is always a challenging environment to be in. And so, yeah, for us to be able to plan ahead and put stronger succession plans in place is a great focus for us.
Yeah, I agree with Amy there, where you need to be looking after your volunteers, making sure they've got the right fit. And indeed, it can be only 1 or 2 hours that you do. I had a coordinator specific for one program. It would be nice for the person also to be on the ground when the program was running. The person couldn't do that. That's okay, we'll find somebody else that can do that part. Really like to do the admin side of things. It was really great organising stuff. Are we going to say no to a person like that? Don't think so. So there was a great connection on both sides. You need to work on that. I realised though that, and of course you make some mistakes there, is if it's not the right fit. So you need to make sure that a person who steps into their role either can work towards it or is already on the level that you would like to, but also understanding that sometimes a volunteer comes in and it's like, hey, I want to do that role, but if you feel it's not a right fit, if there's no can't work on that level, then don't make that call to say yes, go ahead. Then it's better not to fill that role and find something else for that person.
And so we've got almost 400 active volunteers at the moment, and that number tends to be reasonably steady, but a little bit of fluctuation from time to time. And we try and keep a record of the volunteer hours that go in, and I think we way under-report this because with our relationship with Volunteering Bay of Plenty, we're required to keep this, and so we're tracking at over 10,000 volunteer hours a year. Now, if you cost that out even at a very basic rate, that's a big financial contribution that is going into conservation and towards predator-free 2050. And that is happening for absolutely nothing, but because of the time that people put in. But yes, I think making sure that it doesn't become too onerous, that you don't burn people out, and I think and not making assumptions that everything's okay. So keep the communication lines open with your volunteers, keep them informed, and I think one of the things we're trying more and more to do now is to provide little highlights from time to time that are away from just working. So I'll give you a couple of examples. Saturday week ago, we took a group of volunteers, 32 volunteers, down to Whakatane to meet up with their Kiwi group down there. They put on pizza and chips for us, and we had a bit of a chat about how we approach the conservation work, and then we went out in the bush and had some guided night walk with them, which was really fantastic. And then another one, we have farmers over near Cambridge who've set aside a gully and have predator-proof fenced it, and we use that as a crate for birds that have been hatched, Kiwi, that have been hatched and are looked after in there, and it's a very generous contribution from those farmers there. But we took some of our volunteers over there last year to say thanks to them, and we went and worked on the gully for a day, just clearing weeds and tracks and just trying to help out. But again, it's that something a little bit different that you're kind of giving back to the volunteers and adding value for them. So whether it's and it could be a training day on how to use these traps more effectively.
Yes, I love that.
So just for us, building in every couple of months some sort of little highlight that is a value add for your volunteers.
That's brilliant. And what about yourselves? Do you have anything like that? I know obviously you have awards every year, which people can get involved with, and that's brilliant for them to see how that contribution has allowed the kids to be part of this as well.
I see my role, but I also talk to my committee around it, and need to walk around and talk to the coaches and the parents, and just saying, hey, thank you very much, and see I think for me, I'm also coaching, of course I've got multiple roles, is to see the development of a team.
Yes.
Where you start at the season and the end of the season, and see if we can. We really focus at Blue Rovers to make a really team out of it. We're not too worried about the scores. It's more about how they work together and make a team effort. It's really great to see that, and also realizing that, hey, well, your team was there, and now you're there with your team. If you notice that yourself as well. So it's enforcing, indeed, about the amazing work that they do. Prize giving, it's a thing that we do. We also include our coaches and other people, and just as Bruce mentioned, not a lot of people want to be put in the spotlight. So it's you've got to have different ways of saying thank you to volunteers, but definitely do and keep doing it. Yes.
Yeah, and keep doing it. I think that's really important, isn't it? It's that consistency that you don't just do it as a one-off, and you keep being grateful, and always having gratitude. All of us, whether we're volunteering or we're one of the paid employees in the organisation, I think that's really important. What about yourselves, Amy?
Yeah, absolutely. It's really important for our group because a lot of the time they are sort of operating, particularly the delivery drivers, they're almost on their own, like they don't really have a lot of contact with the rest of the branch, so it becomes a really important thing for us to do. That's bring everyone together, and we try and do it every 2 or 3 months, whether that's in town here sharing pizza or at someone's house having a bit more formal, but it's really that time to bring the group together so that they connect with the rest of the branch. Gives us the opportunity to talk to them about some of the things that might be happening from Bellyful from a national perspective, but also just share some of the really cool feedback that we get from families that we've touched, and those that are doing the deliveries are the best people to tell those stories because they're seeing that firsthand, and that's a really good feedback system for the rest of the group to hear firsthand what the reaction has been like when you've turned up on a doorstep with a bag of 4 meals for the week for a family that's really struggling. That's the feedback is so powerful, and that's the stuff that keeps people engaged and wanting them to keep contributing. So that part of bringing the group together is super important.
Yeah, know what part they're playing in that impact.
That's
they
it.
might not get to see it firsthand, but everyone has played a part.
That's right.
And that, I think that's wonderful. And I think it's wonderful what all your organisations are doing, and as we've talked about, you wouldn't be able to deliver what you're doing without volunteers and the great work that they do and the time and the passion and the effort that they give. So I do have one final question for you all. What is your number one golden rule for your organisation to be successful with your volunteers?
Jeepers, that's tough final question.
Sorry.
The number one golden rule.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's a bit boring in a way, but I guess it's got to be health and safety for us. We cannot be putting people out in the bush in unsafe conditions, or not making sure that they are supported and that they're going to come back safely and have part of the barbecue and go home happy. So that would be it. And because one other role that I didn't mention before was with the kōkako in our bush, and those birds, the blue wattle birds, beautiful birds, and so their numbers got really, really low, and Doc took them away out of that forest many years ago, and they've only allowed them to come back, and we've had to bring them back in from other areas because the predator control worked as well. And so we've got people out there who are doing surveys every 2 or 3 years to check on their numbers, and we've seen their numbers go up, but getting rid of rats and possums still is just a major challenge there. But yeah, I think health and safety, keeping people keeping people motivated and keeping them safe.
Yeah, love it. Thanks, Bruce.
Definitely health and safety, and Bruce is touching on one thing I want to mention. It's with our players as well. I mentioned already, it's not only about winning. The number one thing the committee came when we did a bit of a session about what we want to achieve, and that's enjoyment. The kids the players need to enjoy playing football, and I think it's the same for your volunteers. If they enjoy what they're doing and having a great time,
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I agree. That enjoyment factor is probably the biggest important thing to keep people engaged. And for me, it's about communication. It's about telling those stories so that you're just reinforcing the why all the time. This is why we're doing what we're doing, and this is the tangible evidence that we can see we're doing some good here. I think, you've got to keep talking. You've got to listen to them. The guys that are doing the stuff all the time are the best to give you the kind of the feedback that you need in order to make some decisions around changes that you might need to put into your organisation. I'm a storyteller, I'm a communicator, and that for me is the number one.
Brilliant. Well, thank you all so much for joining us this morning. I really appreciate your time coming out here, volunteering your time to spend with us. So thank you so much. Thank you.